Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Public and Protective Services Committee today. The voting members of this committee are myself, Councillors O'Connor and Councillor Berg, and of course, Mayor Clayton. To begin, we've got a delegation to talk about Drive Happiness, and I believe that is Miss Mansell. Hello, good morning. So, kind of the routine here is you get about 5 minutes to present on whatever you want to present about, and then any committee members will be able to ask any questions if they're curious about something you said.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. I do have some slides. I'm just going to try and share those quickly with everyone. Are you all able to see my presentation?
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Perfect. So like I said, thank you for having me today. My name is Evelyn Mansell, and I am the Program Manager for Drive Happiness. So Drive Happiness is a nonprofit based in Edmonton that provides a seniors assisted transportation service across the province in many areas. So this service is a volunteer-based assisted transportation program for older adults and individuals who are experiencing maybe financial barriers or have restricted mobility. So the goal of the program is to provide transportation to various appointments, mostly medical, but it can be to social engagements, to programming, the senior center, to visit friends and family, to provide caregiving. Really, there's no restriction, and we do this through the help of a network of local volunteers. We provide the service to those 65 and older, and we work with a variety of partners to ensure that we have a large reach across the areas we work in. We accept referrals from healthcare organizations, from senior centers, so we work really in the community with the community. So most of our clients, they are 65 and older. They do identify as lower income individuals and have some sort of mobility challenge, whether that's they have some cognitive challenges, they use a cane, maybe they have arthritis. We are very lenient on what we would define as a mobility challenge. The only barrier we have as an organization is not being able to help individuals who are wheelchair bound because the volunteer vehicles aren't equipped to accommodate that. So these criteria for utilizing the program, they're not set in stone. We do make exceptions, and we assess each application on a case-by-case basis. Just because we are a nonprofit and we do rely on volunteers, we're not like a taxi service. We can't just dispatch someone else. We can't help anyone that calls the day off. So there are some steps to sign up and access the service. The first being filling out an application form with some information, and then booking the ride. We usually require 3 business days notice. Just that gives us some time to put it on the schedule and have the volunteers check what has been booked and for when. And then there is a small fee to use the service. So we work on a ticket system. Each ticket is $10. It's good for 90 minutes or up to 40 kilometers. If trips go over that, we do charge an additional ticket. And then longer distance trips may be charged on a mileage basis. And this is due to the fact that we do reimburse our volunteers for their mileage. So we make sure that their gas is covered, and they're just donating their time and their vehicle. So we have a network currently in Grande Prairie of about 9 volunteers throughout the whole county, with the majority being in the city of Grande Prairie. We have been carrying out volunteer recruitment since about April of this year. We have connected with lots of community-based organizations in the area to help spread the message of the program and help us with volunteer recruitment. Once we have these individuals inquire about the program, we do put them through a quite intense screening process. We ask for a driver's abstract, a negative vulnerable sector police check, and then we ask for copies of their license, registration, and insurance. So any of the costs that are associated with getting the abstract, we do reimburse for the cost, but they do need to have that clean abstract, so they can't have any demerit points to be accepted into our program, and the Class 5 license does need to be a full Class 5. We don't accept individuals with their Class 5 GDL. A lot of our volunteers that come to us have questions about their insurance. So as a volunteer using their own vehicle to transport individuals around, they're not they don't have to tell their insurance broker. They're not required to bump up their insurance or get special certifications. And this is in accordance with the Insurance Bureau of Canada. So as a volunteer, they're not going to have to make any sort of changes to their current vehicle insurance. That wouldn't be the case if they drove over, I think it's about $15,000 a year in their volunteer capacity, but no one has ever come close to that. So the Drive Happiness program, like I said, we are based in Edmonton. We've been operating since 1998, but we are relatively new to the Grande Prairie area. We completed our first 3 rides last week, so it was very exciting. And we're just hoping to spread the awareness of the program so we can assist more individuals in the area who maybe are lacking support. Maybe they can't take public transit options. Maybe they don't have friends or family to drive them around. So it's really just a supplementary service for individuals to utilize if there's no other option for them. One of the reasons we came to Grande Prairie was because we were working on a special project under the Public Health Agency of Canada and their Immunization Partnership Fund. So from now up until the end of March, we are running our Driving Rural Access to Vaccine project. So that entitles anyone 18 or over can use our transit service free of charge to go get any sort of vaccination, whether that's a flu shot, any sort of booster shots for, say, tetanus, going to get the shingles virus. Really, there's no restriction. The policies are still in place. We still require 3 business days notice. And there's always the possibility that we don't have a driver, but we do let individuals know at least a day in advance whether they have a driver or not. So if they do have to make other arrangements, there is some time to do so. So that's a very, very brief overview of Drive Happiness and what we have been doing in the area, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Well, definitely a very interesting presentation, and thank you so much for being in our area. We always appreciate services here. So I'll turn it over to Grant Berg.
Thank you, Chair Bressie. So I have 2 questions. Is there an ask or a request from this, or is this simply awareness and education for the city and council?
Yeah, it's just awareness and education. We think the more people that know about this, the better. And we find that, especially with older adults, where do they go looking for information? A lot of the time they do go to their council people. So just having that information in the back of your head and being able to utilize it as a service for when people are inquiring about transportation options.
Thank you. And follow up, how do we connect volunteers and seniors with you?
Yeah, so really anyone that does want to utilize the program or volunteer, they are, the best bet is to call us. So our number is on the screen here. We do have a toll-free number, and that way we can get them connected to the proper contact to get them signed up. So we do have a volunteer coordinator based out of Edmonton that goes through the applications and does the screening, and the same with clients. So for the clients, everything can be done to accommodate them. So we can mail them out an application. They don't have to have a computer. They don't have to have access to the internet. All of the bookings can be done over the phone as well. So again, they don't have to have access to the internet or a computer. As for volunteers, it's a very low commitment position. Once they kind of are sent to us, connected, we get them screened. We provide them with some training about interacting with individuals, and then they're able to pick and choose the rides that work best for them. There's no minimum commitment. They can choose whereabouts they drive, if they want to stay within the city or maybe they're comfortable driving out to other areas. It's really up to them. So send them to our website or have them give us a call and we'll be able to help them out.
Thank you, Ms. Mansell, for your compassionate work.
Great. Thank you. Councillor O'Connor, then Councillor Bosch.
Yes, thank you very much, Evelyn. Great report. Thanks for reaching out to me and taking the approach to present at City Council, and hopefully we'll see you at our Rotary Club in the next month or 2. So thank you very much for your report.
Thank you.
Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Chair Bressie. Thank you, Evelyn. My question is, what is the average cost, let's say if somebody needed this service to Edmonton for a specialty appointment?
Yes, so we haven't done any longer distance trips from Grande Prairie. I would say in other service areas, we kind of are working on about a 50 cents a kilometer rate for those longer distance trips, and that just ensures that then the volunteer will be covered for gas. So I'm not familiar with the distance between Grande Prairie and Edmonton, so I can't give you an exact number, but it kind of would be between, I would say, 45 to 50 cents a kilometer.
Okay, thank you for the information. Good job on this program.
Great, thank you. Yeah, just thought for you, Miss Mansell. It's about 4.5 hours, but there's a lot of people that drive between Grande Prairie and Edmonton pretty regularly. I'm one of them, and I think that there's probably people in our community, again, I'm one of them, who might be willing to have an extra come along every once in a while when they're doing that trip anyways. So if you are starting to put thought into that kind of trip, that might be a possibility for you. I see Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you for the presentation. I actually was not aware of this program, and so I find it interesting. You said you had 9 volunteers currently across the city and the county. I'm wondering how many people you have accessing the service, if you have some kind of number about the users who are using the service.
Yeah, so currently we have 5 individuals signed up to use the service, and only 2 of them have accessed the service recently. Interesting, most of our volunteers are within the city of Grande Prairie, but most of the clients who have signed up are outside of the city. So I would say the majority of them have signed up. They live in Claremont, and then only a few are within the city of Grande Prairie. So we're really seeing that the volunteer base is coming from within the city, but the need for the service is coming from outside of city limits and some of those more remote areas.
And I would guess that you would be advertising your program through the seniors' homes on a regular basis as well. Good. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you.
Looking around, I don't see anybody else flagging me down, so I think that we get to let you off the hook. But again, we really appreciate the work service in our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a great morning. Thanks for giving us some of your time today. And with that, I'll move on to item 3.1, the service area update with Chief Lemieux.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll start with the community social development update. Grande Prairie's living wage for 2002 was announced on November 14th and has been calculated at $19.65 an hour, which is a 20 cents increase over the last year's calculation. So I just want to point out that the living wage is different from the minimum wage in that the minimum wage is the mandatory legislated minimum set by the provincial government. Living wage is a voluntary commitment by employers to go beyond the minimum standard, and it reflects what people need to earn to cover the actual cost of living in their community. I want to notify Council of the International Day of Persons with Disabilities coming up on December the 2nd. That I believe there's an event, luncheon being hosted at the Teresa Sargent Hall, and I believe that's in Council's calendar. So I would encourage you to attend that event on December the 2nd. On the housing and homelessness front, we are partnering with our city GIS department to create a housing and homelessness evaluation dashboard that'll provide data supplemented by a number of departments. So that'll be similar to what the Homeward Trust does in Edmonton, and some of you are familiar with that, but we'll have some further information coming along the way, but certainly we're working on that dashboard for our community. Enforcement services update. We had 4 enforcement officers attend and participate in the local Remembrance Day ceremony on November the 11th. And with regards to the CPO or Community Peace Officer program changes, effective December 31st, the CPO 2 classification will be eliminated. And so we're making some progress in moving our CPO 2s to CPO 1 classification. And so with the recent graduation of 2 staff from the Community Peace Officer Induction Program on November 2nd, 1 staff also completed the CPO-1 Bridge Training Program. So the department will have only 1 remaining officer to complete the conversion. So good progress there. Update from the fire department. The fire department is currently running an NFPA 1001 Level 2 officer course. 9 students are attending and will receive their NFPA certificate upon completion. The course is instructed by local instructors based on local material, yet it still meets the curriculum requirements. And if I could just add that our Chief Training Officer, Mr. Tufford, at the fire department has done a really good job pulling this course together, and we'll be using part of that course that he's put together in our citywide orientation for new employees. So kudos to the good work that's being done there. On the RCMP front, the Grande Prairie RCMP GIS section has been and currently are running a project with the Criminal Intelligence Service Alberta regarding scrap metal recyclers in the Grande Prairie area. The purpose of the project is to help decrease the intent and to protect against metal theft. Scrap Metal Dealers and Recyclers Identification Act implement duties to scrap metal dealers and recyclers when they purchase or receive scrap metals. And the Act also enables law enforcement to conduct compliance investigations and establishes penalties for contraventions to the Act. And on November 10th, of this year, a local company was charged with failing to comply with the Scrap Metal Act, where potential penalties for contravening the Act are $50,000 for a first offense and up to $200,000 for a second offense. There are some upcoming town hall public forums hosted by the RCMP this week. So Superintendent Brackman of the RCMP detachment invites local community members to town halls being held at various locations throughout the city between November 21st to November 28th. Residents served by Grande Prairie detachment who may have issues, comments, or concerns are invited to attend and to have a discussion with members of the RCMP. Town halls are not only a way to connect with local community members, but it's an excellent opportunity for people to let us know their concerns on policing priorities, which helps the RCMP better serve our community. So we certainly encourage community members to attend one of those sessions. Since the beginning of September, it has been reported to the RCMP that multiple pride flags have been stolen from the VLA Montrose area, along with a pride flag being found burnt in the downtown area. It was also reported that there was a mural that was spray painted with hateful signs. So it is unknown at this point if these events are connected, but the RCMP continue to investigate those mischiefs. And a municipal policing advisory committee meeting was held at City Hall on November 16th. And an update from the Community Knowledge Campus. We continue with our anniversary celebrations throughout the month of November. So anniversary specials include Monday free fitness classes, Wednesday $2 swim access, and a BOGO Fridays where non-members buy 1 admission and get 1 admission free, and members can bring a friend for free. So those specials and celebration are very well attended. And there's a holiday gift guide that'll be launched, or that was launched on November 15th for the CKC, and it includes discounted punch passes and corporate bulk buy incentives. And sale of the holiday mystery gift cards begin on December the 9th, and those get sold out very quickly, so please note those on your calendar. And update from the Sports Development, Wellness and Culture is following a presentation to committee in August of 2022. Administration has received 12 letters of support from municipal and community partners, indicating support to host future Alberta Indigenous Games. On sport tourism side, Grande Prairie is being showcased for the month of November in the member spotlight for the Sport Tourism Canada as a sport hosting destination. So that's really good news and good exposure for us. And with regards to Leisure Centre, sport equipment from Leisure Centre, including boards, glass, netting, and divider curtains, will be repurposed for use out of the city facilities, and the turf will be repurposed pending its condition once removed. And that's my update. With regards to transit, there's a report that will be presented later on where Mr. Harvard will give an update on changes in the transit. So I'll skip over that one until his report. But I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Excellent. Thank you. Mayor Clayton.
Thanks, Chair Bressie. More of a comment. I just wanted to thank the Sports Development Wellness Culture team who toured recently the Special Olympic Bid Committee throughout our community. I spoke to the people that were here in order to make the decision whether or not we qualify as a host, and they were thoroughly impressed with our facilities and really impressed with our organization and our staff. So I just wanted to thank the team for leading a great tour. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Great. Well, thank you for the update. And that lets us move on to item 3.2, grant recommendations. Ms. Bieberdorf.
Thank you, Chair Bressie. The Community Advisory Committee met on October 13th, and we reviewed arts development, pursuit of excellence, and community improvement grants. 2 applications were received and are recommended for arts development individual project funding, and that totals $1,980. For pursuit of excellence, 5 applications were received for the Come Fly With Me Fund, and this is an endowment fund held by the Community Foundation. It was started by Ryan Blay, who used to be an elite athlete, and he still lives in Grande Prairie today. So we have $4,000 available for disbursement in that fund. We received 5 applications for Perky McCullough, which awards 2 $2,500 scholarships intended for athletes going on to international competition. 9 applications were received for Bob Neufeld, which awards 4 athletes at $1,200 each, and that focuses more on the provincial and national level of competition. With the limited number of scholarships and keeping within the criteria, swimming was only eligible to fund 1 athlete for a scholarship, and we did have 1 additional athlete who the committee felt was deserving of a scholarship, but decided to fund them or recommend funding them through athlete development funding in lieu of receiving a scholarship, as we had met the maximum number. And lastly, 4 applications are recommended for the Community Improvement Grant. We have $25,000 in this fund, and some of the projects include a practice cricket pitch and some neighborhood amenities such as upgraded playground and recreation infrastructure. And we did work with Parks and Energy Environment on these projects, totaling just under $15,000. So administration is requesting that committee recommend council approve the amounts outlined in Appendix A.
Excellent. Thank you. Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, this is a question for CAO Nikolai. On here, we have the Grande Prairie Cricket Association practice pitch in Northridge for $5,000. Now, they did a presentation, and we're looking at a number of options, possibly even a larger space for them. If we approve this, are we handcuffed to spend that money in that Northridge location that they are asking, or do we have flexibility if we find a better, more accommodating space for them, that it could be moved there?
Thank you, through the chair. I'm going to defer that one. There have been active conversations with that group, and I'll just make sure that your response is accurate as well. Katie, would you mind?
Yes, thank you. We certainly can work with them to utilize the funds in another location if it's more appropriate.
Terrific, thank you.
Welcome.
Excellent, thank you. A question I've got is, I noticed our community improvement grant is undersubscribed, which is always kind of sad for me to see. Have we put any consideration into changing the intake time of that, or having 2 intakes throughout the year? I know that there's some history with different grants at different times, but.
Thank you for the question. So we typically do the intake in the fall for projects in the next year. So the money would be funded now for them to do the work in the spring. So often this is the time of year where they're planning for the projects so that they can do them in the spring and summer. We could certainly look at it. I'm not sure that it would work with the neighborhood association's timelines. They may have to change the year of the project, but we can definitely reach out to them for consultation on that.
Yeah, it might be worth considering. I know just with some of the groups I've been involved in, this is far too early for a $2,500, $5,000 project. This one we're starting to think about a big project, but also often you're just kind of tired from the year. You get through the spring, you get through the summer, you kind of rest through the fall, and if you're doing a smaller scale project, at least in the groups I'm involved in, you're often starting to think about those in January, February for the spring. So just something for administration to maybe consider. You're absolutely right, though, about the big projects I hope they're thinking about now. Any other questions from committee? Is anybody Councillor Berg?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Bressie. I would like committee to recommend that council approve funding allocations as presented in Appendix A.
Excellent. Any discussion on that? Great. Let's call its question. And that motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Bieberdorf. And moving on to item 3.3, I see two of you. Are you tag teaming it or who's? All right, well, come on up. Mr. Gear, Mr. Lefebvre. And just go ahead when you're ready.
Okay. So we have two reports. So in August 2016, Committee Director Administration read back a report regarding e-bike and e-scooter safety along the trail system and within the city of Grande Prairie. As with most cities in the past few years, the city of Grande Prairie has seen an increase in e-bikes, e-scooters, and even some other Segway types. There's even some with a skateboard with a motorized wheel in the middle that have been seen around that travel around. So there's a lot of different new type apparatuses that are being utilized within the city. City of Portsmouth has not specifically received too many complaints regarding e-bikes or e-scooters. A search of enforcement records did not show any incidents when a person was injured. However, in 2022, there was an investigation where an e-scooter was being utilized by youth in a reckless manner, and we use that more as an education type incident to discuss with the parents and the youth. A search of the RCMP records show in the last 4 years 54 collisions regarding bicycles. Now, with the records management system of the RCMP, specific wording as an e-bike and e-scooter had to be put in to try to search those specific fields. And the search listed one file in 2021 which mentioned an electric scooter, although it was not involved in the accident. It was an e-scooter crossing a road. A motor vehicle abruptly stopped and then was hit, rear-ended by another vehicle. And there was no data on e-bikes or e-scooters safety concerns for the trail systems. And in 2022, there was no revealed entries. In terms of the provincial regulation, I won't go through those on the report. For e-bikes, they have the, the motors, how fast they travel. As for e-scooters, what's interesting is the Traffic Safety Act also regulates miniature vehicles, which includes the e-scooters. Pocket bikes, golf carts, motorized skateboards, go-karts, and motorized personal transport like Segways, for example. They are not permitted on any highways in Alberta, including sidewalks along roadways, unless issued a provincial exemption. So some of the larger municipalities, as indicated in the report, like Edmonton and Calgary, have obtained an exemption from the province in order to have vendors, and they do rent some of these, the e-bikes and e-scooters, and those are indicated there in the report. Overall, data and research seem to indicate that the use of e-bikes and e-scooters are on the rise in Grande Prairie. They provide a clean, economical mode of transportation which is readily available for most people. The concern for this emerging mode of transportation is a safe operation given some of the places where the e-bikes and e-scooters are being utilized. In Grande Prairie, there's no real data to suggest that e-bike usage is a safety concern. However, this is something that will require monitoring since e-bikes and e-scooters appear to be on the rise. What seems to be very interesting in speaking with individuals about their use is that most citizens are surprised to find out that for e-scooters specifically, they're not allowed. They're strictly prohibited by the province legislation. So we, as law enforcement, have used this focus on preventing the use. We haven't been preventing the use of small electronic mobility devices. We use that more, like I said, more as an education piece on educating people on safety. And that concludes the report. If anyone has any questions regarding this report.
Excellent. Thank you. Councillor Blackmore, then Councillor Berg.
I see in your report the recommendation is to develop a program to move forward with addressing safety of e-scooters and e-bikes. Are you anticipating that that report would include the possibility of shared micro-mobility programs coming to the city?
Like I mentioned, I think it's something we need to monitor because they are on the rise. And if the city decides to go by way of allowing some of these new devices on our streets or sidewalks and so on, it's something that we'll have to look into getting an exemption from the province, and then I guess going from there and looking at a.
And I'm speaking specifically of the rental programs. Calgary, for example, has a scooter program that Councillor Bressie really loves. And I'm seeing that as I travel, I'm seeing that increasing over city by city. Certainly something that I think eventually will come to Grande Prairie. Are we going to address it now ahead of the?
It's definitely something we can look into. We've looked at the different models that Calgary and Edmonton have done in terms of vendors. For example, I know they went from the first year from having, I believe it was 4,000 between the two, and then they've actually reduced that to half of that. I think it was 5,000, sorry. They've reduced it now to 750 per vendors because of some of the issues, accidents and so on, and some of the concerns brought up by the municipalities in those areas.
I'd like to see us kind of get ahead of the issue with anything you can do.
Okay.
Starting to get interested. I've got Councillor Berg, Mayor Clayton, Councillor Thiessen, Councillor O'Connor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Bressie. So again, it says develop a campaign, and I guess at this point you have not developed the campaign, but just telegraphing. And I'm sure you've had conversations. Is this through enforcement, marketing, trail signs? What are your preliminary talks?
We do have a report coming shortly regarding trail signs, regarding bikes and so on, that will be, that'll kind of address the trail system in terms of pedestrians and other uses for the trail system. It's mostly, I think, just from seeing the increase that we're having throughout the city. And I think it's something that we're very conscious of. And we do realize a lot of people do enjoy the e-scooters and some of the programs in Edmonton and Calgary, for example. So it's something that we've, I guess we've got our pulse on, and we're looking at ways to address it in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Clayton.
Thanks, Chair Bressie. I just had a question in regards to the provincial regulation on e-scooters. It indicates that they're not permitted on any highway in Alberta. So does that mean if kids wanted to use their scooter to go to school at, say, Charles Spencer, and they live in the city, they just need to avoid that entire route along 108th, which is also a highway?
Through the chair, unfortunately, yes. These devices aren't allowed on a highway, but that includes sidewalks. So really, the only place that they're really legally can operate these are in private land, their own private land. Once they get out onto a highway or onto the sidewalk system, then it becomes an offense, a provincial offense.
I just want to make sure we're talking about the same thing as an e-scooter. There's lots of e-scooters that I see on the roads in our city. People are driving them with a helmet for commuting to work, etc. And you're saying they're not permitted in the city at all, other than private property?
Not to be confused with electronic motor or bicycles. Electronic bicycles are allowed. E-scooters are not. Electronic bicycles have a whole definition.
I know what an e-bike is, but an e-scooter where a person sits on it, right, and is a scooter, and people are wearing helmets and commuting to work in those. I see them around the city all the time. You're saying they're not allowed in the city at all?
No. The only thing that's allowed is a moped and an electronic bicycle. A scooter, electronic scooter, is prohibited.
So an electronic moped's okay, not an electronic scooter?
Not an electronic scooter.
So can you clarify for those who may be watching the difference between a scooter and a moped?
Well, yes, I can actually. If I go back, I brought the definition. So a moped, it's defined under the UHRR, which is the use of highway and rules of the road regulations. A moped is a a cycle that does not have a displacement bigger than 50 cubic centimeters. And it has a maximum speed of 70 kilometers or less. There's some regulations about the seat height and everything like that, but that's the big deal is that it can't be over 50 cubic centimeters and 70 kilometers is the limit. To operate a moped, you need a Class 7 license, so a 14-year-old could operate a moped as long as they have a Class 7 license, and they have to have all the equipment, helmet, everything like that.
My understanding is the difference between a scooter and a moped is a moped you sit down and a scooter you stand up.
Well,
I think that it's not. This isn't information for me. This goes to support the fact that there needs to be, information brought back for the community to be shared upon, because I think there are many people out there using different electric devices for communication or for commuting, and we just need to be clear on what's allowed and what's not.
Yes, I have it here. So what is considered a prohibited miniature? Maybe let's not dwell on an electronic scooter so much. What is a prohibited miniature vehicle? And that includes electronic scooter. And in their diagram, they have I guess, I don't know, what would you call it?
Yeah, just the
A
handles.
skateboard, yeah, electronic skateboard.
One you stand up on and one you sit down.
Yeah,
One you stand
and then the next is a pocket bike, a small
Yeah.
motorized bike, a golf cart, a motorized skateboard, go-kart, and a Segway, something like that. So those are examples, and anything that would fit in to that category, basically what's allowed is a moped and an electronic bicycle, and anything beyond that is prohibited.
Yep. No, I get it. I just want to make sure the community gets it.
Okay.
So, yeah. Thanks.
I've got Councillor. Sure, if Councillor Thiessen or O'Connor don't object, then I'll let Blackmore go on this. All right, Councillor Blackmore.
When we talk about electronic scooters, we're not talking about what would essentially be an electric motorcycle, correct?
No, that's correct.
Okay.
Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair Bressie. Thanks for the reports, Mr. Lefebvre, Mr. Gear. Just a question in regards to your study in Edmonton and Calgary on their e-bike bylaws. Through that process, did you become aware of any tickets that they may have issued, or if we're going to move forward with a potential bylaw here in the city of Grande Prairie, is it easy to cookie cutter and place here in the context of our people?
Thank you for the question. Through the chair, that wasn't really looked at, the ticketing aspect, the enforcement aspect. What we looked at was what was allowed and where they were allowed, and the mechanism of going through the province to get the exemption and stuff like that. We didn't look at enforcement for offenses.
Okay. And as far as like their bylaw, do you think that's something that can be easily applied to Grande Prairie and our bylaws if council were going to go forward with looking into creating a bylaw here?
I think it's something we have to look at in terms of what would fit Grande Prairie. And I think obviously utilizing Edmonton and Calgary as a basis for building that would be important. They both have slight similarities, but yet differences as to where they allow them, the size of them, for example, and so on, the age. So I think it'll depend on, and again, our sidewalks, the width, will that be on a sidewalk? We talked about the roadways and so on. We talked about, for example, the last report, the bike lanes where we only have the one for like 5-6 blocks, so that's not an option. So it'd be something that we would have to look at those two bylaws, and I think really sit down and look and see what fits for Grande Prairie.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, if we're going to move in that direction, just something to put in the back of your heads. I love bells on bikes, and those e-bikes are pretty heavy, and yeah, that could be something we could look into. Thank you.
Excellent. Mr. O'Connor.
Thank you, Chair Bressie. My concern is I want to thank you for bringing this report forward. I think it's something that, like Gladys Blackmore has mentioned, we should be looking forward. And one of the concerns I have is on the trail systems with the advent and the increase of e-scooters, e-bikes, whatever, on the trails. One of the things that's missing on the trails is some way to report if there is an incident. And so I know there's a texting program looking to come out that you could report incidents, because that's the thing people may get run into on the, but you're going to phone in because somebody almost run you over with a bicycle. So I think this is something that we should be considering going forward, is how do we report on the trail system to keep our trails safe from people?
Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, I think we, like I mentioned earlier, we do have another report coming regarding signage. And I think that's something we could probably, when that goes forward, if we're going to go ahead with the signage, that we could be looking at incorporating that maybe on there, or looking at somehow of doing that.
Great, thank you. A question I've got, so if we did direct you folks to do a campaign, what would you picture advertising that campaign? What would be your goal of that campaign?
Through the chair, thank you for the question. If there's going to be a campaign, then we would obviously have to work with our media people here in the city and try to get the message out. As Superintendent Lefebvre said, that when we do speak to people, most people are surprised. So we would have to maybe defer to our experts and really look at a campaign through the city website and through Facebook, Twitter, that sort of stuff, and try to get the message out. That would be my suggestion.
Right. So with the campaign, it wouldn't be necessarily best practices relating to e-scooters. It would be a please don't use e-scooters campaign. Is that what the campaign would look like?
Well, that's the way I see it, and unless there's suggestions, I'm absolutely open to suggestions, but I would think at this point it's covered under provincial law, so it would be, until we have some sort of other bylaw in place, it would be, well, this is the existing law, and hopefully we want you to follow this law because it's a safety concern.
I see Mr. Manuel in the back.
Yeah, so I think what would be envisioned is, I'll be the first to admit, until we dove into this, I didn't even understand the particulars to how many devices are operating around the city of Grande Prairie that are actually non-compliant with provincial law. And the city doesn't have the authority to override provincial law. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't form an advocacy priority for us, because frankly, the legislation I was reading is outdated. It's not in alignment with the current devices that people are using. And e-scooters are the primary one, right? The stand-up e-scooters that all of our kids and the ones you see for rent in Edmonton and Calgary, frankly, at this point in Grande Prairie, unless you're on your private property, they're illegal. And I don't think most people know that. Calgary actually has a really good matrix that breaks down all the different transportation options people have, and little check marks and X's as to where you can operate those devices. I see us being able to provide that as an interim solution to say, hey, this is what exists today. To Councillor Thiessen's point, the requirement to have a bell on a bike and lights on bikes, those are existing requirements. We don't even need bylaws for those because that's provincial law. But people need to be made aware that those are provincial laws. So I think that's where, one, the signage piece comes into play with what we plan on doing in the parks and in high traffic corridors. I think this infographic that I'm talking about here, and I'll distribute it to council so you guys can kind of see what Calgary's doing in that regard. And I think there's likely an advocacy priority that exists here that we can maybe bring through Alberta municipalities as one of our resolutions perhaps this year, because I suspect every other municipality is going to be grappling with the same issue. And I would suggest that's a course of action for us.
So I'm just kind of curious how the legislation works in terms of, you mentioned that Calgary and Edmonton have an exemption. Is that because they're charter cities they were able to get that, or are we able to get an exemption if we wanted one? How arduous is that?
So the only exemptions that exist for Calgary and Edmonton are restricted to what they call shared e-scooters. So these are private businesses that operate a for-profit model where they're defined differently within the legislation between a private e-scooter and the shared e-scooter. And the I'm not sure if it's the minister, but the provincial government has the ability to permit the shared e-scooters. I don't believe they have the ability, or they haven't exercised the ability to allow personal exemptions.
Interesting. All right. I see Mayor Clayton, then Councillor O'Connor.
Thanks, Chair Bressie. To be frank, I think that it's kind of ridiculous to think that we're going to go out and tell kids that they can't ride e-scooters and e-skateboards and be active on our trail systems. I think that pedal bikes are going just as fast as these kids, and if they're wearing helmets, I think that that's appropriate. Fine, administration wants to go out and have community consultation and tell the community what it looks like. I think that it's a little premature till we know as a council what we want to see out of this. So those are my comments. Thanks.
Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, thank you, Chair Bressie. I would like to have two motions, and the first motion I'd like to recommend is that we ask administration to come back and look at a bylaw for e-scooters in our community. Am I in order to ask for that?
You're a member of this committee, so you're welcome to make a motion if you...
Yeah, I would like to see that motion be put in place. We may as well get ahead of the curve because of the laws, and we're not in compliance right now, and that doesn't make sense to me. And I'm sure enforcement would be very confused to try and decide, do I fine this person or what do I do? So I think we need to ask committee to go forward and do that.
So, sorry, are you making a motion right now?
Yes, I am.
So can you restate your motion for me?
Really?
Yes, please.
I'd like to see committee ask administration to come back with forming a bylaw for the usage of e-scooters and e-bikes on our trail systems, and whatever they recommend. I don't think it can be on roads, but I think it should be on the our trails at least, or sidewalks.
So you're definitely welcome to make that motion. I'm open to being corrected by administration, but my understanding is we can't make a bylaw that supersedes provincial legislation. So essentially all we can say in a bylaw is what provincial legislation is saying, that, sorry, you can't have it. And if we want to prohibit them, there's sometimes merit to that because it can sometimes be easier to take it under a bylaw if that's the method we want. But I also see Mr. Manuel.
So administration's advice regarding this is probably a mixture of the two. So I think the motion could be slightly amended to, you're right, we cannot supersede provincial legislation. It's not an ability we have. However, for lands under the city's direct control, so pathways, we could have a bylaw provision that permits on pathways. So I think what the motion would need to be is have administration come forward with a bylaw that incorporates e-scooter considerations within the city's scope and authority, something along those lines, where we can bring forward what we can do, we can highlight what it is we can't do, and perhaps what we can't do can become advocacy items.
I'd be willing to amend the motion to say, advise administration to propose a bylaw that within the limits of the city of Grande Prairie on pathways to allow the use of e-scooters. And if somebody wants to wordsmith that in a better way, I'd be welcome to take any amendments.
See Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Chair Bressie. I'm not on this committee, but I'm just have a caution. Is e-bikes the only thing that you're looking at? Because there is other, or e-scooters, there is other options. You know, you have the little motorized skateboards. You can't. I don't feel you should limit it to one specific mode of transportation when they all fit into that bucket.
Okay, so I think Mayor Clayton.
Yeah, go ahead, Mayor Clayton, if you've got something.
You know, discussion with administration is appropriate on this. I think specifically segways and skateboards make sense. Golf carts, pocket bikes, and go-karts do not make sense to me, but skateboards and segways and electric scooters make sense to me. So, but I'm not going to amend your motion. So, I would hope that administration would bring back some information that aligning with the appropriate ones of that list, because golf carts and pocket bikes don't make sense on sidewalks
Yeah.
to me. So, thanks.
I'd say the one I'd personally add to that is one wheels too. I think makes sense. Yeah. So I don't know if administration can see this in these scribes. So how it reads right now is direct administration to bring back a proposed bylaw amendment to allow for, within city administration limits, the use of e-scooters and e-bikes in the city. I just want to check with administration. Is that a clear motion? Any concerns with that motion if it carried?
We should amend that, though, right?
I think we understand the intent that it's encompassing the other modes of transportation that were identified through the mayor and in the one wheel, and we can come back with a draft that can ultimately be amended by this council.
Thank you.
Excellent. Any other conversation on this motion? And then I will call it to question. And Councillor O'Connor, you mentioned that you might have two motions. Is there another one you're hoping to make?
Just the business arising from the report on the main one, if you want to take that.
Yeah, you're definitely welcome to make that motion. I don't know if you'll get support for it or not, but you're definitely welcome to make that motion.
Okay, I will move that committee direct administration to develop a campaign focus on the education of the community in the various requirements and best practices related to operating e-bikes and e-scooters in Grande Prairie. And I'd like to add an amendment to that that would include the safe operations of bicycles, all motorized equipment that would be allowed based on the previous bylaw.
Sure. Maybe just a suggestion for that amendment is, I'm looking at the recommended motions. Maybe if I see this, the recommended motion is related to operating e-bikes and e-scooters in Grande Prairie. Maybe if you just added e-bikes, e-scooters, and active transportation in Grande Prairie, would that cover what you're hoping to get at?
I think that was, if everybody else agrees with that.
Okay. Mr. Manuel?
Just a respectful consideration here is if we're going to come back, and we'll try to turn this around as quickly as we can, but if we're going to come back and we're going to propose some changes to what exists today, it may be a little counterproductive or premature to message out requirements that we plan on changing in short order. So perhaps I completely agree this is a step we need to take, but maybe this is the second step as opposed to the first step.
Yeah. Councillor Berg.
Yeah, actually, we've got about 5 months to make this decision until it becomes an issue again. So again, I was just going to echo.
Don't be negative.
Don't be negative.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got 3 months.
Thank you.
We're accelerating some global warming, and we want a nice early spring. So again, you got 3 months, Chris.
Councillor O'Connor.
Perhaps, Chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor O'Connor.
Perhaps it's better that we don't push this forward ahead. We refer it to committee and administration for developing a different proposal. And so we can accept this for information?
Yep, make a motion.
I'll make that motion that we accept this for information.
Great. So you're withdrawing your last motion, making this
Yeah,
one.
if you can figure that out, you're better than I am. So.
You know, sometimes it's fun making a motion that goes 4-0. All right. We've got committee. Sorry, I do have one more. I do have one more question, and kind of embarrassing to ask this. Maybe I'm the one that should know this, but if we wanted to make a request for a decision proposal for Alberta municipalities instead of waiting next fall, so we can bring it forward next spring, does anybody know the deadline for that?
It's soon. Yeah, we can find out, but I'm pretty sure it's soon.
Well, maybe I'll just leave that with administration if they feel that this is something that should come to our attention sooner for advocacy at that deadline. I just ask respectfully that maybe that come to us in a workshop if the administration feels it needs to.
I also had a question, if I can, Chair. I recall in conversation that there's also another municipality that has recently added, maybe St. Albert, somebody else added scooters. So, Mr. Manuel? Sorry.
City of Lethbridge.
Okay.
In
Medicine Hat.
Medicine Hat.
So there's few other municipalities for consideration when we look into what's possible.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, we do have a motion on the table. Any further discussion on this? All right, then I will call that to question. Excellent. That motion carries. I think that concludes that. But Superintendent Lefebvre, Mr. Gear, I think you guys are both up for injury collision hotspots as well.
Yes. So at the last committee meeting, the administrator was directed to bring back further information regarding the traffic counts to the figure 1 that we had presented, a map showing those intersections, and whether those can no longer be enforced due to provincial changes. So if everyone looks at the injury collision hotspot 2021, the figures there, the traffic counts were added on the last column, and where you see the ones highlighted in red, or they're actually the locations of permanent 8 equipment, so our CREA cameras, and also in green are the authorized zones for the mobile sites. In terms of the question regarding what can no longer be enforced due to recent provincial charges, there were none. There is a freeze which should be ending. The province is supposed to come back with a decision in December. The only thing I can tell you is I believe Councillor Bressy, the last time we had a question regarding any changes regarding the province, which there isn't, but I think you would refer to any changes in the last few years. And there was a camera at the intersection of 116th and 100th Avenue, the Costco. And as a decision was made with enforcement, the RCMP and Global Traffic to remove that, it was removed as a result of the injury collisions, or the collisions at that location was due to following too closely, unsafe left turns, nothing to do with speeding. So the decision was made to move that to another location to focus on speed concerns.
Excellent. Thank you. Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Bressy. So if I'm reading this right, these numbers are the hotspots in order of number of collisions? So
for 2021, yes.
Okay. So I'm going to drag photo radar into this. So one of the things that we've been told we need photo radar for is to reduce collisions. And I'm well aware of 4 locations that photo radar exists in the city because I drive past them regularly. And none of them are any of these hotspots. How often are these locations evaluated for photo radar?
They're evaluated every 2 years. We just went through it with the RCMP this summer and Global. Presently, there is a freeze on any new location or the use of new devices. Again, like I said, until probably December. For example, just to maybe give a bit of insight. So you're looking at the first location, which is 160th and 97th Avenue. So either way, north, south, east, west, that's very, it's their top location. Unfortunately, there is no location for them to set up properly in a safe manner in order to do some enforcement there. So that's one of the reasons why some of those locations, you'll go, well, how come that's the top one and there's nothing there? Those are one of the reasons. So we do try to focus on those areas through conventional enforcement, but those are the reasons why some of them may not have, these sites are not covered by traffic or photo enforcement because of location and what they can and cannot do in terms of safety for setup.
Thanks.
Councillor Blackburn and then Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you for your report. One of the pieces of information that I would find valuable, and I know I could get out a calculator, figure it out myself, is you have the percentage of collisions with injury, and that's, out of all the collisions, how many have injuries. I would like to know, out of all of the vehicle movements through the intersection in a 24-hour period, what's the percentage of accidents? So, for example, at Highway 40 and 100th Avenue, there's 57,000 traffic movements through there a day, and yet the number of accidents is not any higher than many of the other intersections with half of the amount of traffic. So for me, when I'm evaluating the safety of an intersection, I would like to know the percentage of accidents per traffic movement. I think that's a valuable ask. I would say that if you have 57,000 traffic movements a day and 11 accidents, the intersection is actually very safe. Compared to, the intersection by Ernie's, which has significantly less traffic movements and still the same number of accidents. So that's just for information in the future. I don't need that today, but for information in the future when you're compiling this report, I feel that that would be a valuable addition for council to see.
Very well. Thank you very much.
Councillor O'Toole.
I'm asking a question on behalf of Councillor Palat. Have we, your unit, ever thought of having signage where it said high accident location or fatality and posting them? See, Chris.
I'll recognize Mr. Manuel.
Yeah, certainly. So you'll actually see at several of the intersections that are on this list, those signs do exist. The one that comes to mind that I see all the time is up by Ernie's at 116th Avenue and 100th Street. There is signage that says this is a high collision intersection. That being said, the decision to put that signage there rests with transportation engineering and Robin Hutchinson's group. They're the ones that determine where those get placed.
I was just wondering, is it a negative impact on the community or is it a positive impact?
So I would say that I know when that signage was initially installed, I want to say around that particular one I'm referring to, around 2010 or 11 or so, that was the #1 intersection in the city, and it's not the #1 intersection any longer. So I would say it doesn't hurt to have it there.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Councillor O'Connor, were you hoping to get in?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
Yes, on your report on the first one, it shows 108th Street and 79th Avenue. And then on your map, the numbers differ. One shows 12, and then on the one on your map shows 15, and there's no ability, I think you just mentioned that, there's no ability to put equipment there to be able to. Have you done an analysis on why the number of accidents? It's almost the highest in the whole city for number of accidents.
Sorry, can you repeat the 108th and 79th Ave?
Yes, 108th Street and 79th Ave, and on your map it shows 15.
It was just a number. We're just numbering them 1 to 15.
Oh,
they're not. Yeah, it had no relevancy in terms of.
Wow. Okay.
Excellent. Any further questions?
Only I could answer that.
Well, is anybody willing to make a motion to receive for information? Excellent. Mayor Clayton gets on the scoreboard. I'll call that to question. Great. Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate the conversation today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next up, we have Mr. Harvard with what I consider a very exciting report.
Okay. Yeah. For sure.
Thanks, Chair Bressie, members of the committee and the Committee of Whole. So the report, committee's had an opportunity to read the report, and I'll provide a few highlights and then answer questions afterwards. The transit redesign occurred about 3.5 months ago. We have been monitoring the data and certainly reviewing feedback that we've received from all of our passengers and our operators. The observations that we've accumulated are that certainly we've gotten some excellent feedback with regards to the routing, that passengers like the routing, and that they certainly are happy with all of the transit routes transferring downtown. That's been a big bonus. What we did here was that schedule reliability is resulting in mistransfers, and that something that the terminology that we use within transit is interlining what one bus does from route to route or trip to trip was causing issues and confusion. So we looked at how best to address those, And that's certainly what we've done with the recommendations in the report. We took into consideration all of the information and all of the feedback, and we felt that at this point in time, it was a perfect time to reset the transit system within Grande Prairie to make it a more sound base of a system with regards to schedule reliability. We understand that regardless, even prior to the transit redesign, we had issues with weather, with winter weather, and certainly with construction in the spring, summer, and fall that negatively impacted schedule reliability and again caused people to miss transfers. So we really wanted to start have a good solid base of a system that we can grow on, and one that will ensure that people get to where they want to get on time and reliably. That's the basis of everything that I've got in terms of highlights, but certainly willing to and happy to answer questions.
Excellent. Councillor Berg.
Thank you, Chair Bressie. So thank you for making some adjustments, because we've all heard that there have been some issues, and you've outlined some of them here. So I'm just curious, as far as, again, frontline, the bus drivers themselves, they hear it first. How much input did they have into these changes?
Through the chair, quite a bit. We take our we take all of the information and all of the feedback very seriously. Our employees, our drivers are awesome. They have done an incredible job within the last few months of dealing with the change management, customers who weren't necessarily the happiest with the change. But again, all of our staff have been there. I've certainly been there speaking with them, asking, getting feedback. What is their opinion on what we needed to focus on? So a lot of that was put into play with the changes. We wanted to make sure that they had the ability to deal with the customers. One of the questions that we were getting back, or the comments that we were getting back from drivers, was that, well, we're able to kind of do this, but not very well. But what we're having to give up is that communication with our customers. We don't have the time anymore to answer questions because we have to keep going. And we heard that loud and clear. Certainly we're a public service, we're a social service, but overall, if we want to attract riders, we need to make the service reliable, and we need to make the fact that our drivers have the ability and the time to answer questions and have that outreach moment with the customers.
Yes, thank you very much, because not only are they drivers, but they are our frontline and customer service as well. So thank you.
So, Councillor Blackmore.
I do have a couple of questions, Mr. Harvard. First of all, I want to congratulate you and your department on how quickly you reached out to people when they voiced frustration or concerns, particularly with the new system we're implementing. I think you did an outstanding job of responding to people, you personally. So I congratulate you and thank you for that extra effort. As we move forward, there's two things that I'm curious about. One is, are we looking at a similar re-envisioning perhaps or evaluation of the accessible transport system for people with mobility issues? And the second one is, we did have a motion coming out of budget to expand hours, and I'm wondering if you've already put thought into expanding hours, or if that's going to be new for your department to address.
Through the chair, thank you for your kind comments. With regards to the accessible transit, certainly that's something that's very near and dear to my heart in terms of making sure that we keep that system moving forward. I will be honest with you, the past few months we have had to concentrate on the fixed routes and the transit redesign. That does not mean that we totally neglected paratransit, but what that does mean at this point in time now, hopefully we'll be moving forward with some of the thoughts and initiatives that we're looking at in terms of increasing the scope that we're doing and the service that we can operate with paratransit. With regards to your second question on late night service, it's something that's always been in the back of my mind. So certainly we do have some thoughts and ideas. With the different service delivery models that we currently have at our disposal, I do believe that we're going to be able to do something that will be, similar to others. I won't unique for Grande Prairie, but not necessarily unique in transit in general. But able to deliver that service efficiently and also effectively for the customers. And I also thank Council in whole for supporting transit in that respect.
Thank you.
Excellent. A question I've got is, you mentioned some tweaks to the interlining. Could you just give me a bit more details on what you're tweaking in regards to interlining?
Certainly. Previously, or currently, if you will, a bus will come in as one route, and when it gets into downtown, it will go out as another route. The scheduler who put this together made it an efficient model, yet it was a confusing model because there was no consistency. So a Route 3 would come in, it would go out as a Route 2 or a Route 5, and depending on what time of day, customers would need to know, and they wouldn't know, right? It would be really difficult for them to understand, right? Moving forward, the interlining occurs within 2 routes. So if you come in as a 4, it's a 4 and 7. So if it's a 4, 7, 4, 7, 5, 8, 5, 8. So that's how, that makes it much simpler for people to understand. And we tried to put the routes together where we felt and where the data indicated that that's where the movement of people's patterns were.
Great, excellent. That definitely gives me a lot more comfort over interlining. Overall, I want to echo the positive comments. I think any big change like this is going to be painful for the users and the drivers. It's just the reality of it. But I think administration's been doing an exceptional job hearing customer complaints directly, addressing them, making the tiny tweaks when you could. And now I'm really optimistic about what this more holistic tweaking will do. So I do want to thank you and really echo what's been said about the good things the drivers are up to as they're managing this. So thank you.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else hoping to get in? Could I get a motion to receive? Councillor O'Connor.
I advise this committee to accept this transit report for information.
Excellent.
You make a motion rather than advising us.
Well, I'm having a community. Okay, I would like to move that we accept the transit report as recommended.
Perfect.
Great, excellent. Any discussion on that? I'll call it to question. I have to vote no, just because. Great, awesome. Thank you again, Mr. Harvard. And I do see we have it in camera, but Chief Lemieux, if you're ready, maybe if we do the outstanding items first, just so we can finish up the public portion of the meeting before you go on camera.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Sorry, it'll come off. Oh, gotcha. Oh, okay. You guys are always so much smarter than me. So I should have asked before. All right. Well, in that case, could I get a motion to move in camera?
Moved.
All right. Mayor Clayton, any conversation? Let's call that to question. All right. That motion carries, so we will move in camera. In 3, 2, back to the whatever this committee is called. Chief Lemieux, I think you've got our outstanding items list for the Public and Protective Services Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'd like to propose a few adjustments to the outstanding items list. Item 1200, Grande Prairie Curling Center request. This is to do with options to convert the Grande Prairie Curling Center to a year-round facility. So we have got some budget funds to work with a consulting firm. So I'd like to change that date to May the 9th, 2023, please, for us to report back. Item 1226, Salvation Army Food Security Committee. I'd like to adjust that date to January 17th, 2023 for a report back. Item 1220, Police Service Model Review. We have provided some information to Council this past week, and we are updating our engagement site, so that information will be posted on the engagement site. So I believe that item can come off the list. Item 1221, Police Service Model Review, point of time statistics. We're still waiting for information from the RCMP, so I'd like to adjust that date to January 31, 2023, please. Item 1212, Legion Track Field and Field Facility. I believe that's been dealt with in budget discussion, so I'd like to propose we remove that item. Item 1229, transit outside of current operational hours. So Council has approved some funding for that. So we're still looking at the latest, the end of Q1. So I'd like to put a date on that of March 23rd, 2023, if that's acceptable to the committee. 1227, indoor climbing wall. I believe that was dealt with in budget. So I believe we can remove that from the list. Item 1219, traffic safety and speed concerns, that was presented today. So I believe we could remove that to the list, remove that from the list. Item 1214, bike safety initiatives was also, or sorry, that one is still outstanding based on some of our conversations today. We need to make some, bring some further information with regards to signage. So I'd like to propose January 17th, 2023 as the new date there. And 1215 was a report that was dealt with today, so that could be removed from the list. Those are my recommendations. Thank you.
Great. Well, at least one committee appears to be doing work. I'm proud to chair it. Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, I'd like to move that committee receive the November 22nd, 2022 outstanding items list as amended for information.
Great. Any discussion or debate? Call that question. That carries, and I'll call this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.